Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us again on this Monday. We are coming to a close on our Spotlight on Business video series. What better way to do that than to be in one of Pagosa's most iconic stores, and certainly our longest running continuous store here in our community. It is a landmark here on the corner of Highway 160 and 4th Street. And as you can see behind me, with a lot of these shoes and goods and Western wear, we are in Goodman's department store, established in 1899 and still running today in 2024. So there are so many stories to tell, and there is nobody better to do that than in the family, and that is Haley Goodman Buckingham, that is here with us today with her husband Jeremy, and family. So here we go. We have family here today. Thank you all so much for joining us on this show. You know, you have such a history to tell about this iconic location, about the building, and about family. I think we are now, we talked before, 5 generations of owners here in the store. We lost a family member.
We're going to get little sister.
Okay, well, we'll have another family member join us. Okay, so Haley, tell us, your 5th or 6th generation here now running the store?
We are 5th, and this is 6th.
There we go. So we have everybody now. So obviously, I'm sure you've repeated this history ad nauseum, but for our viewers, can you give us a brief history on kind of the longevity all the way back to 1899, and how and why did the store open?
Sure. It all started when my great-great-grandfather, David Lowenstein, he migrated to New York from Germany, and they decided that big city life wasn't really for him, so he made his way over to Colorado, and he had different business ventures around in the area, and eventually settled down with his wife in Pagosa Springs, and they bought a little building that was originally in the same location as the Fort Lewis Barracks that had recently been removed, and they called their business Lowenstein's Gents Furnishings, and they sold different gentlemen's furnishings, and eventually the business was passed down to their daughter Hortense, who here comes
I think I hear more family and another generation coming in. Okay, so who do we have adding in here now? We have Brinley.
This is Brinley. This is Rory.
And Rory. Well, welcome to our show. Okay.
Anyhow, they eventually passed the store down to their daughter Hortense, who married Lewis Goodman. And the two of them, they expanded the store's offerings to carry ladies' items, as well as wedding items. And with the extra space, when they expanded, they decided to also add in Western products. And so we were some of the first vendors at the time to carry Tony Lama boots, Pendleton blankets. In fact, whenever we get packages from Pendleton, one thing that I always love is they are addressed to L.J. Goodman, and so we've never changed that. But eventually they passed the store down to their son, Dave Goodman, who's my grandpa, and he married Dorothy, and the two of them, one moment. Hey, Brinley, do you want to go get a stuffed animal with Rory and bring it back? Why don't you take her to go get a stuffed animal and bring it back?
Okay.
We're in
We'll be back.
the phase of lots of singing, so that might be difficult for the interview. It's cute, but it's hard.
Okay.
So anyhow, the two of them, they did a really great job with the store, and they passed that down to my parents, and they also expanded, they remodeled and modernized the store, and then I learned a lot from them as they did from their previous generations. And we were really blessed to get the opportunity. When I was 23 in 2013, that's when I took over the store, and I ran it until my husband and we got married, and he was with the State Patrol at the time. So I'll let you take it from there.
Jeremy, so now we have, there seems to be a lot of partnerships in running the business. So, we're back with a stuffed animal. Yay. Okay. So there seems to be a lot of partnerships, husband and wives that run this, and now you're joining the business. And tell us a little bit about your background and now coming into Goodman's.
So I was a state trooper for 10 years. And when I met Haley, started to kind of dabble in the store, found it just to be an amazing place that as a family we're growing and trying to honor that. Started to work in the store more and more after we got married. And with the State Patrol as active as it is and as busy as it was keeping us, it turned out that it was a lot for the family. So we decided in 2022 that I was going to retire from the State Patrol. I had 10 years on at that point, and so I left the State Patrol and began working at Goodman's full time. And that was a learning process for me, but it's been an absolute blessing and a wonderful process.
Right. Now, Haley, it was between you and your sister at some point in time, I think, through your high school years and growing up here and stuff, all of you worked here at the store, but you actually taking over it. How did that decision come about?
So it was funny growing up. It was always just a known thing. My sister was going to take over the store, and she decided when we were in college, she met the love of her life and decided that their dream, they wanted to live by the beach. And so at the time I was an art major, and when my parents realized that it wasn't her dream anymore, they actually put the store up for sale. And they didn't talk to me first because it was one of those things that I was an art major and I had my different dreams. But I came back to town that summer, and it was just really sad coming in the store knowing that it wasn't going to be in the family anymore. And something ended up falling through with the contract. And so my dad noticed that it was actually Janet, Nima. She noticed that I was sad in the store, and she had worked in the store for years
Yes.
and years and years. And she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I just am sad that nobody asked me." And then my dad came over and found out that, "Well, why didn't you say something?" I said, "Why didn't you ask me?" And so it worked out really well that I was given the opportunity to take over. I changed to business, and it's definitely been a big blessing getting to work with family. It's hard sometimes, but it's
sure.
also it really is a blessing getting to learn from the generations ahead of you. And
especially, a growing family. One of the things that we talk about throughout this series is lessons learned.
yeah,
As you mentioned, learning from those that precede you. So, I'm sure you continue to carry items in the store that people Goodman's is known for.
mm-hmm.
So you have that staple, obviously your boots and your hats, and you can get all that custom and the clothing. But when you came on, both you and Jeremy, what is there something that you are proud that I added this to the store to kind of mark your generation?
I think it's funny. Each generation has done something like that. With my parents, when they did the remodel, they worked really hard to honor the building and trying to keep it intact with the historical value as much as they could. You know, the tin ceiling's original. They matched it for the addition. The floor, the wood floor is the original floor. And actually, whenever they did the expansion, not my parents, and I can't remember which generation did the original remodel, but whenever they did, there had been a lot of fires on this block at the time. So they decided the material they wanted to use was really thick concrete with barbed wire encasing. And
Wow.
that way it made it fireproof from the outside. And so they didn't close the store for a day. They took the inside apart piece by piece and carried it out the front door. And anyways, it just, when my parents did the remodel, they made sure to keep the history. And as we've gone through, one part that was very difficult for us is we knew that it was time to modernize the store a little bit more. We've gotten a lot busier. There's a lot more traffic. Pagosa's changed quite a bit. And it was time to switch to a point of sale system. And it was a hard decision because something about the old cash register, when you check people out at the front, it was just very nostalgic. And we held off for a long time for that reason, but it just became a little bit too much to keep up with.
Interesting.
So with COVID and having to be shut down, that was hard for everybody, but it sort of worked in our favor because we were able to keep our staff, and we were able to use that time to completely switch over to a point of sale system. And
Interesting.
I think that's been something that really helped us with modernizing, but we definitely do try to keep as much of the historical feel as we can.
I'm sure you have people that come here now that bring their families to Pagosa and to Goodman's. It's just, I think more than anything, you're not just another retail store in Pagosa Springs, you're a destination store.
We actually had a story about that recently.
Sure.
Yes, there was a gentleman that came in last September, and he was an older gentleman. He came up to me and he asked if the original family still owned the store. Come here. I assured him that the same family did own the store, that Haley was my wife. And he told me, he said, I just wanted to tell you a story about Lewis Goodman. Oh my munchkin.
Oh my.
You want to go play?
It might be time to go upstairs.
Okay. Bye, Brinley. Bye, Rory. See ya.
And 3 years old is an adventurous age.
Yes.
So he told me that he wanted to tell me a story about Lewis Goodman, who had impacted his childhood and his family pretty significantly when he was just a young boy. And at age 10, he was working over at the Liberty Theater, shoveling coal into the fire to keep the theater warm, to earn money to buy his mom a Christmas gift. And he came in a couple weeks before Christmas, and he had $10.50 is all he'd earned. And he went up to Mr. Goodman and said, sir, I'd like to buy my mom a dress. And so Lewis sent him over to the rack with the dresses on it. And he looked through it, and everything was about $18 and more. And so Lewis went up to him. He was like, well, what size is your mom, and about what were you looking for? And he explained everything to her, or to him, and he said, well, I think I know about the size that your mom would need. And he said, why don't you just go ahead and pick out a dress, because they're 50% off today. And so he picked out a dress, and he went up to the front register, and Mr. Goodman looked at the dress, and he said, you know what? It's really your lucky day. They're not just 50% off, they're buy one, get one free. So he went over and picked out a second dress for his mom, and he said that to this day, he still remembered how amazing their Christmas was and what an impact it had on his mom and their family to just be blessed that way. So, and that's just kind of, it spelled out to me the way we needed to honor the store and honor our community, in that we come from generations, and Haley grew up from generations that just weren't just running a store, but running a part of the community, running something that was a part of the community that meant more than that. And so it was just, that really stuck with me. And he told me he estimated that story was from about 1949.
Wow.
And it's just really cool to be a part of that and to have to honor that legacy, and be blessed with that opportunity.
You know, Haley and Jeremy, one thing we talk about in this series is business, and having been in it for so long, you know, we are a tourism related economy, and I'm sure that affects you. Certainly, you have a local base, but you also, as with your story, Jeremy, you have a large number of tourists that come through town. How have you maintained kind of the business model that you inherited? Have you changed any of that? You know, certainly we've talked in our series about the peaks and the valleys of it. How do you prepare for that here in your store, which has, you know, a higher reputation, longevity, but you still have to go with the ebbs and flows of the economy?
Well, I'd say, each generation had something difficult that they went. I mean, we made it through the Great Depression and we made it through COVID. And so
Yeah.
there's so many different things that with
Construct.
business and retail, you've got to be prepared to evolve as things change. But I do think one very important factor is we try really hard not to be like a lot of the like your everyday business, and a lot of the businesses in Pagosa are not that way, which is nice.
Sure.
I think people, even tourists, must be an Amber Alert.
Sorry for the interruption.
Nope. Keep going.
And so I think what's very important is we don't want to be just another business. And so a lot of the tourists, even being tourists, they are repeat tourists. Or even if they're first time tourists, we want everybody to feel like they matter when they come in the store. We want to get to know them. We want to have good customer service, but also we like to develop relationships with our customers. And I do have quite a few people that will come in and say, I remember coming in here with my grandpa. We bought my first pair of cowboy boots here, and I used to buy my school clothes here, and now I'm bringing my son. And I always really enjoy hearing those stories, and I think it's important that we always take time to hear them, and that we always take time to slow down and not just be another fast-paced business.
Sure. You know, speaking of milestones, our community is getting ready to go through a major construction project. And I think, Jeremy, you have certainly stepped onto the scene and become very involved with the Main Street program as well as the construction project. Do you feel that that's where your strength lies here in this business, is helping that, the back end, kind of the business component of it?
Well, I've always been a strong believer that the people that you're around are the most important thing to be invested in. So that stretches out, and with the business, that stretched out to the community. And when you see challenges that are arising that cause instability and people to maybe be less confident in the future, I've always been one to say, hey, there's always an answer somewhere. We just got to figure out where it's at.
Sure.
So, and I think that's been collective of all the businesses. There's been a lot of people that have contributed to that and having a voice in it. But that definitely brought me more into the fold of understanding my community better and wanting to be a blessing to the community in that aspect. But as a whole, it's just recognizing the need and trying to speak up about it in the most productive way that we possibly can.
Well, we certainly appreciate your involvement in it. I can't go off the air without saying, with all the history that you have here, if you have one or two funny stories that maybe, I think one of them is, everybody talks about John Wayne having been around town and over at Margaret's, or, what was Montoya's. Did John Wayne ever come into Goodman's?
I wish I would have been around. He was, but yes, John Wayne. He did come into the store. He used to escape from all the hustle and bustle around town because people were excited about him, and he'd go in the back and he'd read the paper. And my favorite story, and I hope I get all the details right, but my favorite story is years and years and years ago. I don't know exactly what year it was.
Okay.
But the store had a little safe that they kept money in during the day, but they didn't always have the money in the safe. So at the time at night, it was unlocked and there was nothing in it. But some people came in to rob the store and they never actually checked to see if the safe was open. So they used dynamite to put it in to blow off the front of the safe, and in doing so, they accidentally knocked the phone off the hook. And at the time, there was an operator, and the operator could hear everything that they were saying, and they called the police. And so they did blow the front off the safe that was actually already open, and we do still have the safe. And eventually I need to bring it in and put it on display at the store because I love that story. But they didn't get away. It made for a good story.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I'm sure you have many more fun stories and family stories. Again, I just am so happy that we were able to, you were able to fit into a schedule to have us highlight you as one of our businesses. Our series would not have been complete without including Goodman's and 5 generations. You know, we go through the whole thing. Like you said, we learn in every time, in every generation. There's always been major upsets or changes in our community from, you know, economic downturns and COVID, and you've experienced one of those major milestones. So congratulations for remaining in business and continuing. We hope this little one or one of the little ones we saw before might continue that legacy here. But thank you for being one of our iconic businesses. Obviously the longest running one. We were talking the other day, we have about 5 that had been over 50 years here in Pagosa, but you lead the pack. We're happy that you chose to continue that legacy. Jeremy, we're thrilled that you are in the community as well and adding to that and being so involved in the community as the husband and part of Goodman. So thank you both so much, and a wonderful addition to the family, Daniel. So thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us today here in Goodman's department store. Obviously, we as locals shop here as well and support it, but we are honored that we have a business over 125 years here in our community. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you again.